this presentation is about proving the existence of God as evidenced by His works. Most atheists do not make the certain statement that God does not exist, but they say there's no sufficient evidence for believing in God. An atheist said, the fact that the existence of God is a debatable issue goes to show that there is no sufficient evidence for believing in God. After all, no one debates the existence of the moon or the sun. What is not accounted for by this logic is that God does not force His existence on our senses. Otherwise, believing in God would no longer be a virtue. God demonstrates His existence not through physical manifestation, rather through logical and intellectual manifestation. We do not see God, but we see His works. The works of God testify for His existence. And let me start by talking about His work on the human psyche. We realize that every human being has the intuition that God exists. This intuition could be removed, could be minimized, and when this intuition is not guarded by reason and logic, it will lead to superstitions and polytheism. However, it also leads to monotheism. Not believing in God, the atheist says, is counterintuitive. That means believing in God is intuitive, but the atheist says this intuition came from evolution. It was necessary for survival. Those who believe in God survive better. This explanation is just an attempt to explain away the internal foundation for believing in God. One of the marvelous works of God is that He instilled the intuition about His existence in human beings. Human beings are very smart and clever in understanding causality. This important feature of the human beings, which sets them apart from other creatures, is, in addition to intuition, what God appeals to in order to demonstrate His existence. You see a building, you conclude there must be a builder. You see a garden, you conclude there must be a gardener. You see a pot, you conclude there must be a pot maker. Why? Because you understand causality and you base your life on your understanding of it. You would not have it any other way. You would not accept it any other way. If you wake up in the morning and you see a statue of yourself sitting in your living room, you would not think it came from nothing. You would not think the rock made it. You see the stars, the sun, the oceans, the plants, the animals, yourself. The natural, rational, logical, intuitive position is to conclude that there must be a maker who is intelligent enough to make these things. This is the traditional view, that it takes an intelligent thing to make other things. Atheists, to disprove God, turn to evolution to assert that it does not take intelligence and knowledge to make things. The atheist goes with the notion that the universe came to existence by itself. Life started by itself, and then through evolution, which is a blind process, it developed to such incredible sophistications without knowledge or intelligence. The backbone of this theory is the counterintuitive irrational proposal that we do not need to have a cause to have an effect, and that ignorance can produce sophistication and intelligence. The atheist knows that not believing in God is counterintuitive and supports his or her position by yet another counterintuitive theory. So in essence, the atheist gives atheism the faith that he or she denied God. But causality, this system, leads us rationally and logically to conclude that there must be a maker who is intelligent enough to make other things. If the theory of evolution is true, meaning the ancestry of all living things is a single cell that developed through the process of evolution all the way to the reptile and then to the gentile, then evolution in of itself as a system must be designed. Dan Dennett, to prove that it does not require intelligence and knowledge to make things, used the computer example to show just as it's not necessary for a computer to know what arithmetic is to compute, it's not necessary for nature to know what it is making to make it. But Dan said, and I quote, "Alan Turing had the whole vision of that computer before it was ever built. It was because he had it worked out in his head that there was ever initiated the process to make the actual artifact." I agree. Just as the computer had to be designed as such, so nature had to be designed as such. Even if everything was made through a blind process, and it does not take a knowledgeable designer to guide the process, or to make a living flying object such as a bird, but the behavior of that bird cannot be explained by evolution. In nature, there are plenty of examples in which animals act in such amazing ways based on instinct, competence without comprehension. Reflect upon the behavior of the cuckoo chick, for example. Secretly, the cuckoo bird places her eggs in the nest of the host when she's not around. The host bird, not knowing what has happened, sits on the eggs that hatches before the rest of her own eggs. Upon hatching, immediately the cuckoo chick goes to work. That is, pushing out of the nest to their destruction the rest of the eggs. The cuckoo chick does not have a criminal mentality. It can neither think nor comprehend what it's doing, but it's doing it anyway because of instinct, competence without comprehension. This type of hardwiring cannot be explained by evolution. There is no gene that is responsible for that. This type of hardwiring is a remarkable evidence of the designer. Furthermore, if evolution was acting on its own without a knowledgeable designer, you might expect to see simple, unimpressive, boring methods of producing and existing. In nature, however, we do not see just basic, unimpressive, boring designs, but we see amazing and amusing creativity. Reflect upon, for example, the stalk-eyed fly. Upon exiting from his pupa case, his eyes are affixed to his face. To him, that is not pretty. Then he takes in air and inflates the stalks that are supporting his eyes until they elongate like a balloon, so his eyes literally bug out. To him, that is pretty. That's what secures for him a male. To me, that is creativity in design. That is a humor in design. Creativity and humor in design point to a designer. God demonstrates His existence not through physical manifestation, rather through logical and intellectual manifestation. We do not see God, but we see His works. The works of God testify for His existence. I presented 4 aspects of the works of God that logically and rationally lead us to acknowledging His existence: intuition, causality, instinctive behavior, and creativity. and thank you for tuning in to this production of Love God Institute.